Hello, Sarah Sabin, transformational leadership and business coach here in my video interview series, Leading in the Modern Way. And I am really excited to welcome today Gregg Roberts, who is co-founder and COO of Yousic Play. Gregg, welcome. And would you like to introduce yourself briefly to my audience?
Sure. Thank you, Sarah. Yes, again, my name is Gregg, and I am CEO, as you mentioned, and co-founder of Yousic Play. We are a music learning company seeking to transform the way music is learned. We do that through a combination of world-class human instruction, the best of AI, performance feedback technology. We are about 3.5 years in, and just launched our technology recently out to the public, and it's been a fun journey. It's really, I'm actually the probably one non-musician on the team. We have some real expert, like I said, world-class instructors there. And our passion is to more democratize the way music is learned for people that can't afford a Berklee College education or a Juilliard, that can get great music learnings and progress in their music learnings with a sort of more 21st century approach and using the best of digital and the best of human combined.
I love that. My one my one foray into learning music, I think I learned the piano for a little bit when I was little, but other than that, I think it would have been nice to have somewhere to go online where I could have learned.
Yeah, that was me too. Just a couple years of piano, but for people that have heard of Duolingo for learning languages,
Yeah.
that's what we're looking to do with music, where it's technology is so it works because it works, right? It's good and it's easy and it's effective and accessible, and it's not a big effort to get on the tube or the subway or get in your car and have to drive to a lesson. I mean, take an hour lesson and come back. It's something that sort of you can do at your will, at your convenience, and that's how you're only going to get progress with anything if you're actually doing it and practicing. It's easy to do these days. So
Yeah.
delivering also in sound bite and more bite-sized chunks that I think are more conducive for the way our neural networks are wired these days for shorter attention spans.
Very diplomatic way of putting that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'd love to know more about your entrepreneurial journey. You're 3.5 years in, and I'd like to know a bit more about what you consider to be the most significant challenges that you've faced in growing the business to its current stage and how you overcame them.
So yeah, the biggest challenges are usually twofold for early stage companies, in my experience, and I've been involved in most of my career in startups and small to mid-sized companies. But with this company, it's really been the combination of that fundraising and revenue generation to keep the oxygen in the tank. Those are the two big ones. And at the same time, while you have to get product out there, you have to get content out there, which is product is our technology, our platform, and then our content is our lessons. They have to be shot and negotiated. We have a whole list of different celebrity artists that have contracts that need to be negotiated and paid for and all this kind of stuff, and lawyers. And so, but the biggest challenges are that raising the initial money to sort of get off the ground, and then turning that into revenue when you're still trying to get product fit and you have a very thin marketing budget or nothing. I'd say navigating those two are the really are the hardest part. We're sort of now into a stage recently where we're product is out there. We sort of feel like we've cracked somewhat of a code on the marketing end, so we know how to find our audience, and many more people are finding us as a result. But initially, it's that balancing act of making sure you can basically keep your lights on, get everything you need out there in the beginning, and of course the challenges of COVID and changing world and everything going 100% really to Zoom video calls. So I'd say that those are the early stage challenges that are pretty typical, I think, for a lot of us entrepreneurs.
Yeah, and the fundraising, obviously, particularly for technology-based startups. I'm curious to know more about how you overcame those two big challenges. Are there any tips that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I'd say, we were pretty selective with our fundraising. And I think just having a process to it, making sure that we're diligent and vigilant, and just making sure you have to sort of almost allocate a bucket of time every week, and you have to be proactive about it. They're not usually going to just come to you in the beginning. So it's leveraging those internal networks that you have in the beginning. We started with one investor who was a former private equity guy, and then it led to introduction to someone he knew, and then another similar situation where we had another smaller investor came in, and then he actually introduced us to the co-founder of a Fortune 50 company, real heavyweight out there, who invested in our company. So that was very exciting, and that was just that internal networking, and leverage. And in our case, finding people that have some interest in the category that you're in, right, in the niche. Most of our investors have some interest in music to some degree, not all of them, but there's that certainly helps when they really wrap their head around the vision of what we do. But I'd say overall, it's a discipline, and listening to people who, another bit of advice I would give is to, I had a lot of experience raising money for non-tech companies, believe it or not, throughout my career. But this was the first tech company that I involved in raising money, and listening to people with that kind of domain expertise that had, raised money for tech startups and kind of knew that trajectory. That was very helpful, having the right consultant early on that could kind of give us some pointers there.
100%. So what I heard there, use of network and having the right people to mentor you through that journey. And the network part, interestingly, came up in an interview that I was doing for this show a couple of days ago. I think it's an oft underutilized aspect of getting something off the ground to begin with. But it's so important because we all know more people than we think we do. And then, of course, there's our network, in your case there, of you getting an introduction to a heavy hitter.
Very true.
So now that you're at the stage where the product is out there, what are your big plans for the coming year, and how do you envision the company growing and evolving?
So, timely question, funny enough, because we're actually flying our head of marketing who joined us last year to Connecticut. So we're a team that's all over the US and Europe. We have another marketing person over in Berlin. And so we're planning out actually a year. One thing can tend to happen to early stage companies, you're always just reacting. People are wearing multiple hats, and sometimes the proper time isn't put into planning. There's just so much to do every day. And so we're carving out that time and actually literally planning out for a year. So what does that look like? It's going to look like, what are the content we want to focus on releasing. We have a lot of content now that is produced and shot, in our case, music learning courses. How do we want to release it? When do we want to release it? What does that look like? What other courses maybe we want to add to that? Plans, our technology is really coming along, but it's still early on. So there's a lot of testing still that we're doing, and making sure that's getting implemented. So growing that team, we're adding someone to that team to, especially on the AI side of things, to continue to improve that aspect of it. So I think the next year looks, for us, it's an exciting year based on what we have had a really good start so far. And so there's I feel like there's a little extra win, behind us right now, and we're feeling good about the following, the upcoming year. It was tough. Last year was a tough year because there was so much focus on building, especially on the technology. We weren't thinking about the fundraising as much. We weren't thinking about selling courses quite as much. Towards the end of the year, we started putting some of our attention there, and some of those seeds we planted have sprouted. So it's sort of a more fun and exciting time for the team right now.
Oh, that is exciting. And I think, it's a balance when when you're building a technology product, between building a great product, which is obviously important for sustainability, and getting that product out there. And what I've observed sometimes is that it can be easy to focus too much on one over the other. So it sounds like you got that balance right, because you were like, okay, we're going to focus on this for a period of time, and now it's all about taking it out there.
Yeah, it's just like this ever going balancing act, right? I think at any stage until you are fully functioning, 10 years, you've got to more maintain, come becomes kind of maintenance at that point. But we're still, is you never know what's going to come up, which adds to the excitement quotient. It's a new day every day. But there's just more, we're starting to put in systems and processes in place that aren't as needed. Encourage people to do it as early as you can, because you'll usually, gain from that. But as a team and a company grow, processes and systems, those boring words do become much more important.
Yeah.
Keep the flow going.
Yeah, it's the foundations for scale. And you're right, they do sound boring, and at the earlier stages, one might say, what's the point? But if the intention is to grow, better to do that earlier rather than later.
Yeah.
So I'd love to know more about how you define effective leadership and how you see that impacting the people that you work with.
So, yeah, to me, effective leadership is really about being a good listener, a good planner. I'm a big proponent of servant leadership. Really making sure I think number one, it all starts with good leadership. I think starts with surrounding yourself with good people, and then have leadership potential most of the time, not all the time, right? If you're talking about a software dev person that maybe just wants to do that, they don't have any aspirations to manage, but it really, it's Jack Welch, the former CEO of GE, famously said this, it's really, a good company is about getting the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus. And so that's kind of a simple adage to live by, but it's so true. Identifying the people early on. I mean, first of all, it starts with a good hiring process, making sure there's a culture fit, talent fit, motivation fit, and then testing, right? Are they really working well with the team? Are they professional? It's about delivering. I mean, it's really not too complex. If people have skills, it's so much of it comes down to the execution. People can execute, people doing what they say they're going to do, and have an understanding the importance of that. The ship's going to keep moving forward. Not that you're going to, you're going to still run into the headwinds and obstacles, but you'll be able to overcome that. So effective leadership starts, I think, at those early stages, and getting that, being able to spot the right talent that's a fit for your workplace and your vision, and then curating that culture, nurturing that, and doing your best to support people and make them, help them to win in what they're doing, and not to steal credit, right? To give credit, to give appropriate praise, and to make people feel trusted is another part. I think of effective leadership. You have to be, for example, people's pay we take really seriously. We want to make sure that all our people feel valued. And even when, back in the earlier days when it was tough to, meet payroll some months, just making sure there's transparency and openness around that, so people know what's going on, and that helps build trust. And I think to have effective leadership, you have to have a semblance of trust, because you're going to just have people looking for another opportunities. If they don't feel trusted, they don't feel safe, it doesn't serve a really good working culture and environment.
Yeah, 100%. And you know, what creates trust, one of the things that creates trust is transparent communication, because if you are not communicating transparently, essentially people start making up stories about what's going on, and then the rumor mill starts, and then trust breaks down. And as we all know, trust takes a long time to build and not very long at all to destroy.
Yeah, and Sarah, on that note, and I'll tell you one thing that has been challenging for me and other friends of mine I know that are, you know, entrepreneurs, leaders of businesses, is this whole seismic shift to what we're doing right now, digital. So companies, many companies, if not most companies, are being pretty much run digitally. Now there's pros and cons to it. I like it from a lot of standpoints. I have more time to, you know, do hobbies and stuff like that. I'm at home 90% of the time, but the communication element does become more challenging when it's just solely screen time. And I don't think we get quite the engagement you can on a group Zoom. It's too tempting. I think all of us, right, to multitask. It's just you're sitting on there on a, you know, 90-minute Zoom meeting, and you know someone's been talking for a bit. You're gonna get a text. It's hard not to, where that kind of stuff might not happen as much in person. So it's, I don't think it's ever turning back. You know, I think we're going to have this hybrid type model for some. I mean, there's different schools of thought on that, but challenge to learn that. How do we stay engaged and communicate? You know, where not too long ago we'd just be walking down the hallway to someone's office, knock on the door, hey, can I get 5 minutes? Now it's, you know, texting, hey, can I get on a call, Zoom call? And so this is just a different cadence, but fundamentally, to your point on communication, it is huge. And having that open communication where things don't get lost in the weeds. And you know, some of the tools are great. You know, we're big proponents of Slack for a major mode of team communication, but even there, you know, Slack threads get filled up fast, and there's different channels, and you can miss communication. And so we really have to lean in more towards being proactive and like identifying where there might be communication lapses or communication gaps, because that's a company killer, poor communication. So
Yeah.
really have to give that an extra bit of effort.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, yes, you do have to be more conscious about communicating well in remote environments. But the sacred cow I just want to bring up is there is an assumption that in person means good communication.
Yeah.
And we all know that, you know, sometimes it doesn't, because people can be in an office together and still not speak openly and transparently. And where that had pre-existed, if you then take that into a remote environment, that gets obviously even worse, and the blame is put upon the remote environment. Whereas, you know, if you are a culture that communicates openly and something isn't working, you're like, okay, well, great, let's just address this. Let's just see where the gaps are and put some forethought into that.
Yeah.
Mm.
Right.
And I'd love to know more about how you've invested in yourself as a leader and how you continue to learn and grow every day.
Yeah, so that's very important to me. I do have a wellness background, and when I talk about wellness, it's the holistic. It's not just, you know, body and mind. Even it's you know, it's our mental health, right? It's our spiritual health. It's a whole combination of things. But so I'm pretty proactive. I try to be pretty proactive around always learning. They say the ABCs, always be closing in the sales word. You know, we say ABLs, always be learning. We really feel like it's crucial and part of our culture. If someone's not teachable, if we don't feel like someone's teachable, they're probably not going to be someone that's going to be in our company at all, or number one, because it's so much to learn, and all of us, and it starts with leaders, right? We have to be open to moving outside of our silos. I'm probably they get sick of me on the team emphasizing that we have to guard against, I think, and a lot of people do, getting into our silos and knowing what we know and not knowing what we don't know. And there's world is moving so quickly right now, and doesn't look like there's going to be any stopping of that. So, it can be overwhelming to some degree. Something I just learned this, and it's like, now I got to learn this, right? It's a new software that came up, and now we're charging to a different communication system, let's say, as far as like, or project management system. We have to learn and adapt faster, I think, than ever before in our history. I don't think there's ever been even a close second to the velocity at which we have to be able to adapt and be open to new ideas and technologies. Chat GPT is a great example of that. That's coming on fast, and whether we like it or not, that doesn't really matter. Like, my dad didn't used to like cell phones. It didn't serve him well at the end, because he passed away a couple of years ago, but it would hinder his relationships. He refused to just adapt the technologies, and it didn't serve him. But he had entitled to his opinion. He didn't like that I agree with him on some of the opinions. It's just it's like, saying, if you live in the suburbs, I'm not going to use a car. Good luck with that. It's going to be hard.
Yeah.
Right.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. Some things just are, and fighting against it is probably going to hurt you more than it hurts anyone else, really.
It's the truth, right? It's applies to a lot of things, right? With our children, it's we can bemoan all the fact that there's the screen time thing, and certainly I feel passionate about that and trying to limit that, but that's going to be a primary mode of their communication, different than it was for a lot of us running around outside and playing in the yard. And much as we want to encourage that, if most of their friends are on communicating that way, it's hard to completely remove that. So, back to the leadership and improvement. I think it's for us as leaders to make sure we're getting information that helps grow the company. Whether it's reading books, I try to, always have a pretty good book in front of me. I try to, look at blogs and get information that is, and attend events once in a while. For example, next week I'm attending an event on, some unique marketing strategies for 2023 that people are trying out. And I think just trying to stay ahead of the curve without letting it fall into overwhelm, right? Knowing that you can't learn everything, you can't do everything, you can't be an expert in every domain, but as a leader, identifying kind of where, you want to be able to lean into to better plan for the future.
Yeah.
And just I just try to keep my ear out for things that I think would help others. And so often I'm thinking I'm checking something out for someone else that I think could benefit, whether it's a new tool, new technology, a new learning, a new philosophy that is going to be helpful. But it's one thing I personally guard against is like the shiny new object syndrome. Like, oh, this sounds cool, and look over, again, then you only have so much time. So I try to be pretty judicious as to where I allocate the time, and learn who to listen to, right? If there's people that you really respect, people that have that experience in an area you could learn more, lean into them. I'm talking to my marketing people. Hey, how are you guys learning new things? What events do you go to? How do you stay on top? It's marketing is really, really challenging, always changing these days. And so, like, how do you stay ahead of what's going on out there? What do you learning from people that are, that have the domain expertise?
Yeah, I mean, you have to lean into that as a leader, because, as you say, otherwise you would be all over the place all the time.
Yeah.
So, Greg, last question, and I'm going to challenge you to answer it super concisely. What would you say to your 20-year-old self as a piece of golden advice?
I would say listen more, be more humble, and strive to improve. I don't think those things were things I had adopted, those things we've talked about on this call as much. So those would be the advice to my 20-year-old self.
Love it.
Yeah.
I have really enjoyed this conversation today, Greg. Thank you so much.
Yeah, likewise.
And for my listeners, I hope you have also enjoyed this conversation. If you would be like to be part of this video interview series, then please do reach out to me. Thank you. Bye for now.